My Series X is in tears right now. Sonic Unleashed has been in desperate need of a re-release for a long time. The load times were long, resolution was low, and the frame rate was a sizzling cry for hardware help. This thing had 2 modes, NES or PowerPoint. That's all you got. Better buckle up and start praying that the Deep Blue doesn't claim another victim today. It was distracting, unappealing, created a ton of input lag. Something needed to be done. And what better time than the present day, where all the kids who grew up with it were now old enough to tell everyone online why it was actually always the best Sonic game until another few years pass and we get people saying the same thing about the next one. The closest thing we had to a stable playthrough for the last couple years was via the Xbox Series' 60 FPS backwards compatibility boost, which at the time was huge news and is still a viable option for anyone without a PC. But even that had its own limitations and a few new bugs under that feature. The Unleashed project had some inaccuracies. It obviously wasn't the full game, emulation was spotty. We needed a real port to do this game justice, and with no signs of that happening in any official capacity, Sonic fans once again took it upon themselves in what is possibly the greatest fine we'll do it ourselves moment in all of gaming. Enter Sonic Unleashed Recompiled, a 1-to-1 PC port made by Scythe and a small gaggle of talented amigos to preserve and improve the 2008 title with 0 compromises. This is how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. There is no crashing, no stuttering, no new glitches, graphical changes. They didn't take stuff away or add things that might tamper with the original experience. It's the same game as we knew it, only better. HD resolutions, uncapped frame rate. Honestly, that would have been enough right there, but they kept going. Motion blur adjustments, shadows, UI alignment, a bunch of other things I didn't mess with. They brought the achievements back. Time of day transitions can be PS3 or Xbox, same with the button prompts. They made an excuse to use the word whilst. There's an option to fade the music out while media is playing from a different application, so you can still hear the gameplay with your own custom soundtrack without needing to mute the volume yourself, even though the slider is right there. And the greatest feature of all, disabling the Werehog battle music. I had gone numb to this so long ago, I forgot what it was like to quiet the voices. It's the closest they get to tampering with the original experience, but I would argue a necessary tampering. And it's still a toggle, so if you're really a stickler for it, you can leave it on, you madman. When people say that they want a port of an old game onto modern hardware, this is what they're talking about. Let us play the thing that we love, but less fuzzy. That's it, nothing else, no fancy remake required. This is a concept that today's companies just don't seem to grasp. Something always breaks. Meanwhile, these guys crank out a flawless product in a fraction of the time that we've been begging Sega to greenlight it for. And this isn't just an achievement for the Sonic community, by the way, or even gaming as a whole. This is for all of mankind. It's impressive, convenient, and exactly what the fans wanted. A shining example of catering to your audience. I have no complaints. Besides nostalgia for technical difficulties, this is the definitive version of Sonic Unleashed as far as I'm aware. It's everything good about the original, cleaned up. Okay, so I hate to immediately go back on that, but there is actually one problem I found. It appears that some of the Series X FPS glitches apply here as well, mainly in the DLC. Certain things, they don't work properly. Huh? The best example is this balloon in Rooftop Run Act 5 that you can't hit when playing at or above 49 FPS. It's a weird number, I know. You have to set the frame rate back down below that if you want the S rank, which you can do mid-level, so it's not a huge inconvenience, but still an issue that hopefully gets resolved. 99 out of 100 is still a great score though, so I stand by my previous accolades. If you want to know how to install this lovely project, there are plenty of great tutorials on here, but it's very self-explanatory. You just need a copy of the game and all the DLC, then you'll extract the recompiled items along with the title update into a single folder. Launch the Recomp app and it'll ask you to import all the files one by one. After that, you're golden. I hadn't done a playthrough of Sonic Unleashed in a long time, so in a way it felt like I was playing a new game again. Especially with the performance upgrade, my experience was unrecognizable at times. I am so used to the Werehog fur lagging everything that when I first took control of him, I thought I was in a different life. You know the pinch me I'm dreaming? That actually happened to me. I didn't think that was real. Jungle Joyride Day not blowing a gasket is of course a mystifying sight that we all cherish equally. I almost can't even play the game at 144 frames. It feels heretical. Something so historically tainted by slideshow ruptures now running perfectly fine with nary a stutter. It's too good to be true. I kept waiting for that cosmic equalizer to rear its ugly head, but no, It's just good. When half the game is all about reaction time, a high stable frame rate with minimal input lag is a must, and we finally have it. The load times also deserve a lot of credit. 06 kind of overshadowed just how bad these were, especially on PS3, but now I don't have to release the demons when I accidentally home in on that freaking hourglass, even though it's off screen. And all that back and forth to go see Professor Pickle so we can unlock the next area is just a little less annoying. If you've never played Sonic Unleashed before and you think this might be a good opportunity to try it out, this is about as good as it's gonna get. But to sweeten the deal, I've put together a list of tips and tricks to help newcomers get a handle on some of the less refined aspects. For as beloved as this title has become over time, there are some undeniable pitfalls. Yell into a crowded room, Empire City knockback, and watch the panic that ensues. The gameplay is split between two central playstyles. The first, Daytime Sonic. This is everyone's favorite part of the game. The debut of the 2D, 3D hybrid boost formula where you plow through levels at incredible speeds reacting to what's coming up ahead, like the occasional branching path and a lot of split-second obstructions, resulting in one of the highest skill floors we've seen in a Sonic game to date. Things come up quick, bottomless pits are plentiful, and the challenge only gets higher as you approach the end. Eggman Land quite literally separated the boys from the men. There were kids who could not beat that until they got older. What is happening here? Naturally, this can make the game very punishing and even a bit discouraging to go fast in, so I would recommend not leveling up Sonic's speed. Unleashed has some light RPG elements by gaining experience from defeated enemies, so you're going to want to put all of that into the other playstyle that we'll talk about in a minute. Keeping your speed at level 1 will ensure that you don't go any faster than you can handle. Don't be afraid to let go of the boost either. If you feel like things are moving too quickly, which they will, this is a great option for those winding twists and turns, especially on rails. Some of the hardest levels are also completely optional, like bonus acts or the DLC, so if you don't feel up to it, you can skip them. Again, with the backwards how many games have this? If you're concerned about losing all your lives and needing to redo a stage, I wouldn't really sweat it since 1-ups respawn after you die, and they usually put one right before a tricky section, but you can use a couple of Dragon Road DLC stages to grind for them pretty quickly. Act 4 is an easy one. It gives you 2 right away so you can restart and keep grabbing them. Or go to Act 5 and collect the several lying around. Alternatively, there's a spot in the Spagonia hub with a ton of rings and 2 1-ups back to back that you can reload by leaving. Again though, I wouldn't worry about it. There are a fair amount of QuickTime events throughout the game as well, a randomized series of controller inputs that don't get too demanding until Eggman Land, but if you need it, you can pause to give yourself a moment to process and view it behind the transparent menu. Also no, there isn't anyone at your door. Lastly, we have Sonic's most convoluted maneuver, the drift. You could write horror stories about what this thing did to us. Nothing is more frightening in this game to a new player than turning. Savannah Citadel Day Act 2 will destroy you. Pain and confusion is all that follows, and not because it's difficult, but because it's poorly explained. Yeah, join the club. Drifting is very loose in Unleashed, and for places like Act 1 where there are walls to block you in, that's fine. But when you need to make sharp turns without that safety net, you realize something has gone horribly wrong. Which brings us to tip number 1, don't boost. This is fairly intuitive. If you see that you're flying off the edge of the stage, it's a safe assumption that you're going too fast. So how do you slow down? Don't boost, easy. It's the second tip that gets into the are you kidding me territory. If you want to turn optimally, you need to first go in the opposite direction and then hard cut back the other way. Without that, there's a strong chance you will fall. This game came out in 2008, and I just learned that today. If you haven't played a racing game beforehand that wasn't just popping in a token, losing, then walking away in confused shame, you will likely never think to try this. It's more probable that you'll end up jogging the turn instead because it's just as effective, easy to understand, and reliable. To make it even more misleading, there are some turns that work without doing this, reinforcing the wrong lesson. That infamous spot in Skyscraper Scamper Day Act 1, God, these names are freaking long, can be cleared without using that trick, and it looks clean. You wouldn't suspect that you're missing a key input. So save yourself the hassle, let go of boost, swing out, then in, and you'll nail it with relative ease. That's all for Daytime Sonic. Let's move on to the other half now. The Werehog. When the sun goes down, Sonic gets jacked and becomes canonically weaker somehow. This is a completely different gameplay style in the form of a 3D beat-em-up platformer. A lot of jumping, punching, and stretching. Welcome to the US. This is generally the part of the game that people enjoy a lot less, so I'm gonna give you all the advice I've learned to make this hairy hamlet as fun as possible. Remember those RPG experience points I mentioned earlier? Yeah, this is where they're going. Put everything into combat. One of the core complaints about the Werehog is that the fighting isn't that great. It can be button mashy, slow, and very easy. Unlocking as many skills as you can right away will greatly reduce that monotony, and you can do this mid-stage by opening the status menu, letting you level up on the fly. Take some time to learn each attack as you unlock them. There's a bit of memorization with the button combinations, and I think the payoff is invaluable. I just beat that guy into the earth. You can button mash through most encounters, which I do consider to be a flaw. However, learning the optimal combo for a situation will always clear it faster. And given how long these levels can get, I think that's decent motivation, dare I say, Sonic-like. There are some cool moves in here that you're going to want to see. The Werewheel Rush quickly became a staple for crowd control, but it wasn't great on single targets because of the lower damage. For that, you'd want something like the Comet Punch, where you hold down the heavy attack and pierce through a bunch of enemies at once, almost like a railgun. The Wereclaw Charge is a dash attack that became my go-to initiator. Aerial launchers into an Azuna drop with AoE damage is classic, and the Donkey Kick combo is an essential guard breaker that I used all the time. You can even shield cancel the ending animations of most ground attacks to chain them together more quickly, or if you do the wrong one on accident. I don't want to oversell the combat because it really isn't amazing. It's more like playing with your food than fighting for honor, but for those willing to look, there is more under the hood that I think is preferable to play with than without. And that's just the tip of the iceberg too. I am by no means an expert. What gave it away? Some of the attacks can also be used in platforming sections, like the aerial spin. Punch, punch, jump in midair, and you can cut a lot of corners or save yourself from a poorly timed leap. Just be aware that you can't grab anything after you use it and are apparently allergic to clocks. The Showhog Ken and Show Clock Ken launch you up into the air, but once again, you can't grab or double jump out of it, so this is mainly used for getting collectibles out of sequence, although you can aerial spin out of it for some distance. Hold the jump button when pulling yourself up from a ledge too. It'll launch you up immediately to keep the pace moving. And if you're worried about mistiming the grab, hold it down and it'll activate automatically. Once you've accrued a healthy amount of combos that you feel comfortable with, I would say to level up your strength. This will help combat encounters go faster as enemy health bars increase with every stage, although I'd recommend capping it around level 6 or 7. After that, enemies die so fast you hardly even get a chance to use your combos, which might be what you want if you really don't care about it, but if you're a combo junkie, that's my advice. Third, I would do the Unleash meter. In my opinion, this is one of the Werehog's highlights. All your movements get stronger, they speed up, you don't take damage, and you're resistant to most hit stun. So pop this before a big room and go crazy. You really don't need a big bar either, since deceased enemies restore some of it back, making for a fun objective to try and have it last the entire fight. Similar to strength, however, I would cap it around level 5 or 6, as being able to spam this does make you kind of invincible. The final two skills are Life and Shield, which personally, I wouldn't touch. Obviously, your mileage may vary, but in my experience, the enemy AI is not very threatening. There are rings and full health restores all over the place, and most of your deaths will come from bottomless pits anyway. You can always bail out mid-fight to check the arena for power-ups too, or stumble upon them after the battle like everyone does. I found the game to be a lot more exciting this way. For the first time ever, I was actually watching my health bar and micromanaging rings in the area. I died a few times from going on autopilot and not paying attention to nearby foes. One of the DLC stages straight up burned my dinner and still made me eat it. It was brutal. Do what feels right to you, of course, but if you're at all familiar with games, I think this glass cannon build is the way to go. It helps that I know how to deal with the more frustrating enemy designs, which you will too now. Bees are untouchable sometimes. These neon freaks have the intimacy of a psychopath. So instead of attacking them head on, go for a grab. Most bigger enemies will resist when you try that, but the bees don't have any hands, so do what needs to be done. The Flaming Wizards have scarred many a childhood, second only to a certain staircase. Always douse them with a water barrel before engaging. That's priority number 1. Sometimes the hit detection is an aneurysm waiting to happen, so make sure there's nothing nearby to sabotage it. Even then, you might not be safe. They also can't set you on fire while you're unleashed. Wizards in general should be your first target, as they often heal their allies. It's sickening. The Titans are notorious for knocking you off the Empire City rooftops. You get hit by their jump, fall to the ground, and as soon as you get up, their shockwave gives you a secondary slap right to the abyss. Once again though, we have a case of the rules just not being very well explained. The Werehog has existential invincibility frames. Some animations seem to keep him safe, while other times he's juggled by blades, so when you get knocked over and they show the prompt to mash the jump button, you do it because you don't also want to get hit by the shockwave. Turns out physics were a lie, just stay down and it'll pass right over you. I'll spare you the tangent on why that makes me want to break stuff. Focus on straight shot punches, watch for the telegraph, back up to jump over the slam, and don't do any aerial attacks because he can knock you straight off at that height. There are also the QTE finishers that appear once an enemy's health bar is low enough. The higher the HP, the less time you'll have, and if you mess up, they heal. But it can be worthwhile on those beefy mini-bosses who take a bit longer, and the point bonus is handy for getting S ranks. I'm not sure if this has to do with your strength level, but I kept hitting him with comet punches and it would repeatedly stun lock him until I won. So yeah, give that a shot, see if it works. Now, these nighttime levels are typically viewed as long and tedious from all the back-to-back fighting you have to do, sometimes getting up into the 15 to 30 minute range. But what you have to realize is that those times are inflated from either dying, playing slow, or most commonly, fighting all the optional enemies. So much of the combat in Unleashed is voluntary. Unless you see those purple gates blocking you off, you don't have to fight anything. And when you play like this, running past all the filler, you can clear every one of his levels in under 10 minutes, with a majority ranging from 4 to 6, some even lower like Dragon Road. So if you're really not jiving with the Werehog and want to trim it down, you're in luck. The only downside to doing this is all the XP that you'll be missing out on, which will hinder your performance in the mandatory combat sections. But fear not, there's a backup plan for that too, if you're willing to do some light grinding. You can spend the rings you get from stages on food in the hub world shops to give Sonic XP, or a disease. In particular, Wentos, the traveling salesman who randomly appears, has a bit of an exploit. Sometimes the food you buy from him will have doubled in value when selling it back, so you can make an unlimited profit, then buy a huge stack of food to consume. My friend, that is not sustainable. If you don't want the hassle of tracking him down though, you can opt for buying chili dogs instead. They're high value and always available. If you'd like a more active method, my preference is to grind Windmill Isle Night Act 1-2. This is the first Werehog DLC stage you unlock, and by breaking all the potted plants, you can get 30 levels per run, and it only takes 5 minutes. If you're lagging behind or just want a big head start, play this as many times as needed. For a point of reference, I did kill all the enemies in every Act 1, but didn't play any of the optional second acts or DLC, and I ended up with level 25 combat, level 5 strength, and level 6 unleash by the finale, which I thought was perfect. What you absolutely cannot run past, however, are the sun and moon medals. We're at that point, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into it. This is yet another feature whose consequences are not well explained until it's too late. These are collectible items found all throughout the game, and after you get a certain number, your power level goes up. Every act has an associated power level that can't be played unless you have the same one. In other words, with each new continent, the stages require a higher amount, so you gotta keep collecting them or else you can't progress. For most of the game though, this will happen somewhat passively because the first 5 power levels go up by a consistent, reasonable 15 medals. You start the game at level 1, then hit level 2 at 15, then level 3 at 30, 4 at 45, and 5 at 60. Level 6 has a slight bump where you need 20 more medals to put you at 80, but then level 7 comes in swinging, requiring 40 more medals to get you to 120. What? This comes out of nowhere and is why so many people will tell you that they had no problems until Atabat Day, the final stage. Even the night one only needs level 6. So, how do you avoid this? Well, you'll be happy to know that you can collect enough medals on one playthrough without needing to backtrack once. First step, hub worlds. There are 2 sun medals at night and 2 moon medals in the day, with the exception of Spagonia and Shamar, which have 4. You might not be able to find all of them, but most of the towns are small enough to get around quickly. Maybe talk to some NPCs, take in the scenery. I can't even begin to imagine what this man has lost. Entrance stages, the second tier of hub, once again have 2 sun and moon medals, although all 4 of them are present during both times of day, so no need to switch unless you can't reach it. Also, anytime you want to change the time of day or go back to the world map, it's right there in the menu. You don't have to walk all the way out there. Entrance stages are the only place where you have to find an hourglass. Boss battles are total freebies, 2 sun, 3 moon for day, and the inverse for night. The arenas are small, they're easy to spot. Even in the running fights, if you miss one, just wait long enough and you'll loop back around to try again. That's 14 sun and 12 moon medals slapping you in the face to be claimed. Take these opportunities when they show up. up. If you want to replay day stages because they're fun, then bombs away, but realistically, they're not optimal for metal grinding. They only have 3 sun and 7 moon metals each, and as we've established, you need a heck of a lot more sun by the end. Which is why the night stages are gonna be your friend. 10 sun metals and 6 moon each. Whew. Doggy. The slower-paced nature of these will also make it a lot easier to find secrets instead of stopping your forward motion to go check a random crevice in the day. I know I made a point about how fast you can beat the Werehog levels, and you're still able to ignore most of the optional combat, but yes, looking for metals will make you spend more time in these, and honestly, I think that's okay, because if you really don't like the Werehog, then you're definitely not going to want to replay it later, so doing a good comb the first time through is going to save you more time in the end. The locations are pretty intuitive too, and even a bit fun when they build a challenge around it. Do yourself a huge favor and tackle the Act 2s as well. These are generally smaller, so they won't take up a lot of time, I've made a grave mistake, and still contain 4 sun and 1 moon metal each. Across the continents that have these, Apatos, Missouri, Chunnan, and Atabat, that's a potential 16 sun metals. You don't have to beat the level for it to count either. If you grab the one you're missing, you can quit out right there and it'll save. Daytime Sonic also has Act 2s and 3s, but they have way less metals, so still worth it when added up, just not a priority. I only recently remembered that there are town missions with 1 metal apiece, but you have to know which townsperson to talk to, and it's such a low amount anyway that it's not a reliable method. Only go for this if you're genuinely interested in talking to the NPCs. Not Jamal though, he's got crazy in his eyes. Finally, if you turn in all the souvenirs from the shops to Professor Pickle, he'll give you a total of 5 sun and moon metals. An extra one of each if you buy the rest from Wentos, but again, he's random. I couldn't find a list of which ones gave metals, nor anything about it being random, so I'll just tell you what I got. Apatos Potpourri, Spagonia Mascara, Chunnan Urn, Halaska Flag, Atabat Flag, and Shamaran Sand from Wentos for sun metals, then Spagonia Flag, Missouri Earthenware Pot, Empire City Jenny, Atabat Anji Sculpture, Eggman Land Poster, and Talismanic Mask from Wentos for moon metals. This could be a good last resort if you're only missing a couple. Do a quick check around the globe and buy everything. Or do it as you unlock each new continent, that's an option too. Keep in mind, these are all extra methods. It's very possible that you might not need them. I relied on nothing but memory and intuition, and I ended up with 125 sun metals. That's without any backtracking, a single Act 2 night stage, town mission, or souvenir. So depending on how diligent you are, this doesn't have to be a daunting task. And with that, all the major newcomer hurdles have been cleared. Sonic Unleashed is a pretty grand adventure, and by going into it knowing the way around its quirks, I think it'll leave a better impression, even for returning fans who just need a refresher. Let's not forget the ones responsible for making this all possible though, the heroes behind the Recompiled project. A big round of applause must go out to Scythe and his ravenous team of Huckleberry Winds, Sajid, Hyper, Dario, Death with some funky artifacts in there, Radiant Dirge, or Durg, one of those, PTK, Supersonic 16, Next in Hickory, Lady Lunanova, LJ Star, Sagween, Goalring Mod 27, Eminem, Daguar, Bria New Sonic, and Kitsuku. Thank you all so much for your hard work on bringing this fan favorite title into its best state. And thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, don't forget to check out the next episode whenever I post it, which will probably be soon. Alright. See ya.